worked at Target for 3 years during college. Third shift, mostly restocking and prep work for the morning crew. The pay wasn't great, but I needed something that worked around my classes. Our store had this weird layout issue in the back corner near electronics. There was this narrow aisle between two tall shelving units that seemed to stretch longer than it should have. At night, when most of the store lighting was dimmed, something felt off about that space. I first noticed it during my second week. I was wheeling a cart of DVDs back there when I saw someone in a red Target vest at the far end of the aisle, just standing there, facing away from me. I figured it was Marcus, the other overnight guy, so I called out to him. The figure didn't respond. When I looked up again, they were gone. I asked Marcus about it later during our break. He laughed and said he'd been working the grocery section all night. Probably just tired, he said. Night shift does weird things to your brain. But it kept happening. Always in that same aisle. Always the same figure in the red vest, standing motionless at the far end. I started avoiding that section when I could. 3 months in, I decided I was being ridiculous. So one Tuesday night around 2 a.m., I grabbed a cart and headed straight for that aisle. I could see the figure immediately, red vest, standing perfectly still about 30 feet down the aisle. This time, I wasn't going to let my imagination run wild. I started walking toward them. "Hey," I called out. "You okay?" No response. I kept walking. At 5 feet away, I could see it wasn't a person at all. It was one of those red Target vests hanging on a hook on the side of a shelf. Just fabric shaped by air currents to look like a person from a distance. I felt incredibly stupid. I reached out to touch the vest. My hand passed right through it. There was no hook, no vest, nothing there at all. I ran back to the front of the store and didn't return to that aisle for the rest of my shift. When I came in the next night, I asked my manager Sarah about the history of our store. Had there been any accidents? Any employees who died or been seriously hurt? She got this weird look on her face and asked why I wanted to know. When I told her about the figure in the aisle, her expression went completely flat. "David worked that section for 12 years, she said. "Heart attack right there by the DVD display. We found him the next morning when the store opened." She paused, then added, "That was about 4 months ago, right before you started." I put in my 2 weeks' notice the next day, but during my final week, things got worse. On my second to last shift, I was working the front end when I saw him. David. Not the phantom figure, but the actual man walking through the store. He looked exactly like the photos Sarah had shown me from the memorial board. Same receding hairline, same glasses, same tired expression. He was pushing a cart full of returned items, wearing that red vest. Other employees walked right past him like he wasn't there. When I tried to point him out to Marcus, he just looked confused. "Point out who?" he asked. David looked up at me from across the store and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who knew I could see him when no one else could. Someone who had been waiting for acknowledgement for months. On my final night, I found a note in my locker written in handwriting I didn't recognize. "Thanks for noticing me. The overnight shift never really ends. Maybe I'll see you around." I still have that note. But the strangest part came 2 months after I quit. I was shopping at a different Target across town when I heard my name called over the intercom. "Team member to electronics. Team member to electronics. The voice sounded exactly like David's, that same tired, methodical tone I remembered from the few times I'd heard him speak. I walked back to electronics, telling myself it was just coincidence. But when I got there, I found a red Target vest hanging on an empty fixture, swaying slightly despite the still air. Pinned to it was a name tag that read, David, 12 years of service. The electronics associate, a kid who couldn't have been older than 19, walked over and frowned at the vest. "That's weird," he said. "We don't have anyone named David working here, and we definitely don't have name tags like that anymore. They switched to the new design 2 years ago." He reached for the vest, but his hand passed right through it, just like mine had that night in the aisle. He tried again, confused, then looked at me. "You saw that, right? There's definitely something hanging there." I nodded, unable to speak. The kid called his manager over, but by the time she arrived, the vest was gone. She looked at us like we were crazy when we tried to explain what we'd seen. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. "Thanks for training the new guy to see. The work continues." I've never been back to a Target since, but sometimes I drive past them and see figures in red vests standing in the windows after closing time, wondering how many Davids are out there, still working shifts that never end. The announcement echoed through the store at 9:45 p.m. "Attention Target guests, the store will be closing in 15 minutes. I was in the toy section with my daughter Emma, trying to find a birthday gift for her friend's party the next day. We were running late because Emma had insisted on looking at every single doll twice. 5 more minutes, sweetheart," I told her as the 9:50 announcement played. The store was nearly empty now. I could see one other customer way down by the pharmacy. Emma finally settled on a craft kit, and we headed toward the front. But as we walked, I noticed the lights were going out behind us, section by section, like someone was following our path. We got to the checkout area, and there was only one lane open. The cashier, a teenager with bright purple hair, scanned our items quickly. "Have a great night," she said. "Drive safe." Emma and I walked toward the exit. The doors slid open, and we stepped out into the parking lot. It was surprisingly dark. I looked at my phone, 10:05 p.m. But as we walked toward our car, I heard the familiar sound of the Target doors sliding open behind us. Footsteps on concrete. I turned around. Someone was walking out of the store about 20 feet behind us. A woman in a red cardigan, moving slowly, deliberately. In the dim parking lot lighting, I couldn't make out her face clearly. Emma tugged on my hand. "Mommy, why is that lady following us?" I looked back again. The woman had stopped walking but was still there, standing perfectly still between 2 parking spaces, watching us. "She's not following us, honey. She's just going to her car too." But when we reached our car and I looked back one more time, she was gone. I buckled Emma into her car seat and got behind the wheel. As I started the engine, I glanced at the Target entrance. The store was completely dark now. That's when I noticed my receipt. At the bottom, under the timestamp, it read, "Store closed at 10 p.m. But according to my phone, we had checked out at 10:05. I picked up the receipt to look more closely. The cashier's name was printed at the bottom. Served by Angela M. I drove home with a weird feeling in my stomach, but didn't think much more about it until the next morning when I saw the local news. A Target employee named Angela Martinez had died in a car accident the night before, around 9:30 p.m. She'd been working a closing shift. The photo they showed was of a teenager with bright purple hair. I still have that receipt. Sometimes I take it out and stare at the timestamp, wondering what those 5 minutes were that I can't account for. Wondering who checked us out that night, and how Emma and I walked out of a store that had already been closed for 5 minutes. The woman in the red cardigan still appears in my dreams sometimes, standing in empty parking lots, waiting for something I can't understand. But the story doesn't end there. A month later, Emma started having nightmares. She would wake up crying, telling me about the nice lady with no face who wanted to show her toys in the dark store. She described aisles that went on forever, filled with toys that moved by themselves, and checkout counters with no cashiers. I took her to a child psychologist, thinking it was just trauma from that strange night. During one session, Dr. Martinez asked Emma to draw what she remembered about the Target visit. Emma drew our family shopping, but she also drew something else. A woman in a red sweater standing behind us in every panel, getting closer each time. In the final drawing, the woman was right next to us at checkout. Emma had given her Angela's purple hair. She says she misses helping people, Emma told Dr. Martinez matter-of-factly. She says she's still working, but nobody can see her except us. She wants to keep being helpful. That night, I called the Target and asked to speak to a manager about Angela Martinez. The woman on the phone was quiet for a long time. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "How did you know Angela? Are you family?" When I explained about the receipt, she asked me to come in. The next day, I met with the store manager, who showed me the employee records. According to their system, Angela had called in sick on her last scheduled day and never returned to work. She had died 3 days before her final shift, the night I met her at checkout. "The weird thing is," the manager said, "our registers show she clocked in that night. The system logged her as working until 10:15 p.m. 3 weeks later, Emma asked if we could visit Angela. She said Angela had been appearing in her room at night, not scary anymore, just sad and lonely. She says there are others, Emma told me one morning. Lots of others who don't know they're gone. They keep coming to work because it's the only thing they remember. Emma drew me another picture. This one showed the Target store at night, but it was full of people. Employees working the aisles, customers pushing carts, all of them translucent. Angela says they don't know they're not alive anymore, Emma explained. They think everyone else just can't see them very well. She says that's why she was so happy when we could see her. It made her feel real again. The drawings kept coming. Emma showed me the night store, as she called it, a version of Target that existed alongside the regular one, populated entirely by people who couldn't let go. Angela was training new ghost employees, showing them how to work registers that wouldn't ring up sales, helping customers who couldn't actually buy anything. She wants to know if you'll visit her, Emma said one day. She says if you come back to that Target at closing time, you might be able to see the night store too. I haven't taken Emma up on that invitation, but sometimes Driving past Target stores at night, I see more lights on inside than there should be, and I wonder about Angela and all the others still providing customer service to a world that's moved on. I got hired at Target 3 days after my 18th birthday. My mom said retail would teach me responsibility before I started college. The manager, Janet, seemed nice enough during the interview. My first week was normal. I learned the register, how to fold clothes properly, basic customer service stuff. The job was exactly what I expected. It was during my second week that I started noticing the Employee of the Month photos near the customer service desk. There were 12 frames showing the winners from each month. But one photo caught my attention. October's winner was a guy named Ryan who looked about my age. In his photo, he wasn't smiling. He was staring directly at the camera with this expression I couldn't place. Unsettling. I asked my co-worker Jessica about him while we were restocking the home goods section. "Oh, Ryan," she said, her voice dropping slightly. "Yeah, he worked here for like 6 months last year. Really quiet guy, never talked to anybody." "What happened to him? Did he quit?" Jessica glanced around, then leaned closer. "Nobody really knows. He just stopped showing up one day in November. Janet said he didn't even call in or anything, just vanished." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about Ryan's photo. There was something about his eyes that bothered me. The way he was looking at the camera, like he was trying to communicate something. Over the next few days, I found myself walking past those photos whenever I had a chance. I started noticing details I'd missed before. In Ryan's photo behind him, you could see part of the store. It looked different somehow. The shelves were arranged wrong, like the photo had been taken in a section that didn't exist anymore. I mentioned this to Jessica, but she just shrugged. They remodel stuff all the time, probably just an old layout. But that weekend, I decided to compare the photo to the actual store layout. I studied the employee photos more carefully. In Ryan's photo, behind his left shoulder, there was a pharmacy sign. But our pharmacy was on the opposite side of the store. More than that, the lighting was different, dimmer. The shadows fell in directions that didn't match the fluorescent lights overhead. Monday morning, I got to work early and asked Janet about the employee photos. "Oh, those old things," she said dismissively. "Corporate likes us to keep them up. Good for morale, you know." "But Ryan's photo looks weird, like it wasn't taken here." Janet's expression changed. She looked at me for a long moment, then walked over to the photo display. She stared at Ryan's picture, tilting her head like she was seeing it for the first time. "Huh," she said quietly. "You're right. That is strange." She reached up and took the frame down, turning it over in her hands. On the back, someone had written in black marker, "Ryan M., October 2023, night shift." "Night shift," I said. "But we don't have a night shift." Janet looked at me with confusion. "No, we don't. We've never had a night shift." She opened the back of the frame and pulled out the photo. Behind it was another picture, the one that should have been there. A smiling woman named Carol, holding an Employee of the Month plaque. "I don't understand," Janet said, holding up Ryan's photo. "Where did this come from?" I took the picture from her. Up close, I could see something I'd missed before. In the reflection of Ryan's eyes, there were shapes that didn't match anything around him. They looked like store aisles, but longer and darker than any aisle in our building. And at the very edge of the reflection, barely visible, was another figure. Someone else wearing a red shirt, standing in those impossible aisles. Janet took the photo to her office and called district management. An hour later, she came back looking pale. "There's no record of any employee named Ryan," she said. "No application, no hiring paperwork, no tax forms, nothing." I quit 2 days later, but I kept thinking about that photo, about those long aisles reflected in Ryan's eyes, about the other figure standing somewhere in the background of a store that didn't exist. Last week, I drove by that Target location. There was a store closing banner across the front windows. According to the sign, they were shutting down due to structural issues and layout problems. I couldn't help myself. I parked and walked around to the employee entrance in the back. The door was propped open, and I could see workers inside removing fixtures and packing up inventory. I slipped inside, telling myself I just wanted one last look at where Ryan's photo had been displayed. The customer service area was mostly dismantled, but the wall where the employee photos had hung was still intact. Someone had left a single frame behind. Not Carol's real photo, but Ryan's impossible portrait. I picked it up and looked at it one more time. In the reflection in his eyes, I could now see more details in those endless aisles. There were other employees scattered throughout the darkness, all wearing red shirts, all standing perfectly still, like they were waiting for customers who would never come. And in the very back of the reflection, barely visible, I could see what looked like a break room. There were people sitting at tables, but their faces were blurred, like they were moving too fast for the camera to capture. One of the workers packing inventory noticed me holding the frame. "You can keep that if you want," she said. "Nobody knows where it came from anyway. Gives me the creeps." I took it home and put it in a drawer, but that wasn't the end of it. The next morning, I woke up wearing a red Target polo shirt. I'd never owned one, but there it was on my body. The name tag pinned to it read, "New hire, orientation today." I tried to take it off, but my hands wouldn't cooperate. When I looked in the mirror, I looked tired in a way I'd never seen before. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on your new position. Please report to store number 1847 for your first shift. Ryan M. will be training you." By evening, I couldn't fight it anymore. I drove to the closed Target. The doors were locked, but somehow I walked right through them. Inside, the store was exactly as Emma had described, full of employees working in perpetual twilight, serving customers who cast no shadows. Ryan was waiting for me by the customer service desk, but now I understood what I'd seen in his eyes all along. It wasn't intensity or anger, it was recognition. "Welcome to the team," he said, handing me a scanner gun. "Don't worry, you'll get used to the hours. We're always hiring, and nobody ever really quits." I tried to speak, but the words that came out were, "Thank you for the opportunity. Where would you like me to start?" The scariest part isn't that I'm trapped here. It's that working these endless aisles feels more and more like exactly where I'm supposed to be.